It's Tuesday, December 11th, and the question today is, are the White House and the Kremlin pushing Zelensky toward a capitulation plan? Because it sure feels like that's what's going on. All right, well, let's look at this. Let's start with a new cover of the German magazine Der Spiegel, which says, "Two villains, one goal, how Trump and Putin are attacking Europe." Huh. How about that? It sure does feel like that's what's going on. Okay, Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov claims that Europe is in an outright militaristic frenzy. They just want to fight. He warns that peacekeepers would be legitimate targets. Now, this is how you know that they don't want them. If he's warning that peacekeepers would be legitimate targets, that's his way of that's how you can tell that he doesn't want European peacekeepers in Ukraine. And then he says that Moscow, now he's talking to Trump, is ready to formalize security guarantees. He's stringing them along, it appears, and it doesn't appear that anything's going to go anywhere. What's on the other side of that? Here's an RT. Trump will restore Russian energy flows to the world and build Russian nuclear-powered or plant-powered massive data center to rewire the Russian economy. Oh, there's all these juicy peace deals, and we can just have this greater future if we could just get past this messy stuff in Ukraine. Now, Trump, in my estimation, and I could be wrong about this, doesn't really care a lot about the details of the deal as long as the deal gets done. That's just my read. I could be wrong. Okay, Lavrov comes up with more and more excuses why Russia will continue the war. Here he's speaking, but he's speaking in Russian, so I'm just going to read what he said. The essence of Anchorage, going back to the Anchorage deal, whatever was there behind closed doors, Anchorage understandings is that Ukraine must return to the non-aligned, neutral, and non-nuclear foundations of its statehood. Okay, so if that's the case, if they have to do that, shouldn't we go back to the Budapest Memorandum where you weren't supposed to invade their borders and you were supposed to defend it? I'm just asking, because that seems like that would be fair. It was precisely these principles that were enshrined in the Declaration of State Sovereignty of Ukraine in July 16th, 1990, and it was on the basis of the principles declared in this document that we recognize Ukraine's independence. So if it's not that, and he goes on, therefore, when we are told, there's nothing we can do because our Constitution states the goal of joining NATO, we recognize a different Ukraine, not Ukraine as it is, but Ukraine as it was. And that's what they keep going back to. And they're going to stay on that position, and they're going to be as unmovable as a boulder. And that's where they've been. And because they've been unmovable, Trump has moved the ball against Ukraine. Okay. Lavrov claims that Putin and U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff resolved all the misunderstandings between Russia and the U.S. from the Alaska summit pause. He also warned that European peacekeepers in Ukraine would be instantly become lawful military targets. Okay. Resolved misunderstandings. So what was it that they were talking about? Or was it anything more than that 1990 framing that you saw here? I don't know. I can't tell you. I wasn't there. But I know that much at least, that's what they want to see. Okay. Russian papers today, we will not agree to a truce because we need the capitulation of Ukraine. That's what it is. It's not just a land deal. They need Ukraine to be within the Ruski Mir, either capitulation or outright war destruction, or just having a puppet government. Well, one way or another, they need Ukraine to be under Russia's thumb. Now, they're spreading disinformation campaigns. Here we have a detailed anatomy of Russia's current propaganda campaign to convince audiences that President Zelensky has multiple nationalities in preparation to flee. Look, if I was showing this early, where is it? I have the other one. That one. Yeah. I was showing this earlier. This here, when he said, I need ammunition, not a ride. If he was going to flee, he had plenty of time over the last 4 years to flee. I don't think Zelensky's going anywhere. Okay. Yet another disinformation campaign has begun aimed at dividing Ukrainian society. The Russian lie is that Magyar threatens to overthrow Zelensky if he signs a surrender. There's a video of his speech that's presented as proof, but the reality was that the video had nothing to do with the current events and is taken out of context. The video was not related to this, and it's from September 2nd of 2022. Stop Fake has found. And so here's the thing. if you have to lie about your position or make something up about your position's really not that strong. I mean, that's just what this amounts to. Okay, the Kremlin is setting information conditions to reject any meaningful security guarantees. This is according to the Institute for the Study of War, by threatening Europe. The Kremlin preemptively rejected the legitimacy of any future Ukrainian government that does not directly control in response to Ukrainian President Zelensky's recent statements that he's ready to hold elections before the end of Russia's war in Ukraine. So it doesn't matter, even if he's reelected, he's not the legitimate government of Ukraine. That's what they're trying to set the table for. Available open source information indicates that Russian forces have not seized Pokrovsk, even though they said twice that they had Pokrovsk. And why did they do that? Why would they say that they had control of an area that's verifiably you can show that they don't have control over? Well, because they wanted to project this strength. Just like this, the ISW continues to assess that Russian campaign to militarily seize the rest of Donbas Oblast, including Ukraine's heavily fortified fortress belt, would likely take at least 2 to 3 years and pose a significant challenge, and result in difficult and costly battles that the Russian Federation may not be able to sustain. But they're asking for all of this territory just because, or they're saying, we have Pokrovsk and we have Konstantinivka. They're saying that because they want them just to give this up ahead of time, or Kupiansk rather. Okay, Putin's loud proclamation from last week about taking not only Ukraine's town of Kupiansk, but towns he actually made up out of thin air, all turned out to be lies, as Ukrainian forces are pushing the Russians out of Kupiansk. So that's not happening either. But again, they're projecting strength in order to get some kind of political win because they can't get it on the ground. During a meeting with military leadership, Putin claimed that the Russian forces hold strategic initiative and ordered the continuation of combat operations that are going according to plan. Nothing's going according to plan. Your plan was that in 3 days you would be in Kyiv, and in 3 weeks you would mop up, and then you'd have Ukraine under your thumb. That was the original plan. Being there almost 4 years later, that wasn't the plan. But you have people like Trump echoing things. I don't know who's informing him of this, but Trump was just saying yesterday, 82% of people in Ukraine are demanding a settlement be made. This was carried in RT. Zelensky has to be realistic. He was saying that. He legitimately was saying that. That doesn't mean it's true. Here is polling from inside Ukraine. 54% said under no circumstances should Ukraine give up any territories, even if the war lasts longer and there are threats to preservation of its independence. What people want to achieve peace as soon as possible and preserve independence? 38%. That's a long way from the 82%. Now, admittedly, the numbers have been sliding over time, right? I mean, that you can say that. I mean, that's true. But so this is October. The most recent was September, October of 2025. So those numbers have slid, but that's not the same thing as saying that 82% are there. And then you have folks like Tucker Carlson saying this.
So there are a couple of different countries you might throw out there if you were looking purely through the lens of what's good for the United States, an America first perspective. The most obvious, of course, would be Russia.
Huh? Yeah. If you're looking through what's good for the lens of what's good for the United States, be an ally of Russia.
Russia. Why? Because it's the biggest country in the world. It's the biggest landmass in the world, and it has enormous mineral deposits, energy deposits. It's got a lot of oil and gas and gold and everything else you need to run.
And corruption. And it's got a GDP the size of the state of New York. It's not that big. It's not that awesome. But he's out there parroting that. And that's part of the propaganda campaign. Whereas almost 80% of Americans consider Russia an enemy. Okay, 80%. So here, 79% or 17% think Russia's an ally, 79% think Russia's an enemy. About the same for Iran as Russia. China, a little bit less here, 76%. Venezuela, 54% think Russia or Venezuela is an enemy, right? So what's the Trump administration doing? Why are they focused on Venezuela and not on Russia? Well, okay. Now, then I saw this. U.S. again voting with Russia, China, and North Korea. Why? What is it? UN General Assembly has adopted a resolution on Chernobyl. The U.S. and Russia voted against it. And the U.S. and Russia are with China, Belarus, North Korea, Nicaragua, Niger, Russia, and the United States. That's who voted against this proposal about, like, hey, we need to shore things up about Chernobyl, make sure things don't go wrong. Times column today. This is Edward Lucas. He says, my Times column today, sorry, Ukraine, we've treated you shamefully. I just want to show you one paragraph here. The more we displayed weakness, the more we encourage Putin to keep going. Yes, the damage to Russia's economy is colossal, as are its casualties, but Putin won't stop until he's stopped. We won't do that. Perhaps you still can. We would appreciate that because our own defense and deterrence on current form will not be ready for at least a decade. But we've treated Ukraine pretty shabbily in the process. Yaroslav Trofimov said this, I have a question. If Russia is an untapped El Dorado, which Trump seems to believe, an untapped El Dorado for American business, a prospect that supposedly justifies sacrificing Ukraine, how come the Chinese haven't taken advantage of their current privileged position to make massive investment and profits there? That's a really good question. Like, you would think that they would do that. Maybe it's just not that awesome as we're being led to believe. Now, Zelensky says the peace plan sent to the U.S. is not final, and that thing is a dog of a plan. I mean, what we've seen so far, I just talked about it in my last video. You can go back one video. I'm not going to get back into all the details. It's set documents still under revision. Depends on how the core 20-point proposal evolves. Key disagreements remain over control of Donbass and Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. He added Kyiv won't accept a setup where Ukrainian forces leave Donetsk, while Russia simply promises not to enter. Yeah, those promises will get you a long way, right? So Zelensky's aware of this, and he's holding the line pretty well. According to the Financial Times, the draft of Trump's peace plan does not require Russia to withdraw its troops from Donbass for demilitarization. This requirement applies only to Ukraine. So Ukraine has to withdraw its own troops from its own territory, but Russia's troops can stay. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. It's absolutely crazy. So now there's going to be some more pushback on December 13th. The U.S. will meet with delegations from Ukraine, France, Germany, and the U.K. in Paris to discuss Trump's peace plan, according to Axios. The closed-door talks come amid rising concern over the plan's pro-Russian bias, clearly is pro-Russian bias, no doubt about that, and impact on Ukraine's sovereignty. So while all that's going on, and the U.S. is taking a posture that's like, what did I show you in the thumbnail? Like Trump and Putin are high-fiving, right? I mean, that seems to be the posture right now. While all that's happening, Putin's move against Trump, a slap in the face to the U.S. president. Kremlin leader called Nicolas Maduro to express support at a moment when relations between Venezuela and the United States are stretched to the breaking point. Budanov reported that the Russian military instructors are preparing Venezuelan forces for potential confrontation with the U.S. Russian General Oleg Makarevich personally oversaw the recent military exercises in Venezuela. So, yeah. So while you're acting like you're best buddies with Putin, Putin's trying to undermine you. Putin spoke with Maduro on the phone. He expressed solidarity with the people of Venezuela and confirmed his support of the government's course, according to the Kremlin. So that's happening at the same time. You got to know who your friends are and who they're not. Okay, last little bit. Boris Johnson, what kind of pressure are we really putting on Putin right now? Let's listen.
What kind of pressure are we really putting on Vladimir Putin right now? What's the message he's getting from these negotiators? Ceasefire, Putin, ceasefire, or else we walk away. Ceasefire, or else we abandon the Ukrainians. The only chance of ending this war is for all of us to turn up the heat on Putin. And it is my central message, it's no use for us Europeans just to blame the Americans. When Europe is still buying Russian gas and paying about $1 billion a month straight into Putin's war machine.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad news all around with that. The U.S. is dropping the ball. The Europeans are dropping the ball. Hopefully the Europeans will pick up the ball here on Friday when they, or was it Friday 13th? Saturday when they meet in Paris. All right. I hate seeing this cartoon, but sometimes cartoons drive the point really well. Everything said in one drawing. My shout out is to Olga Marks, undergraduate YouTube member. Thank you for that. But this Europe/Ukrainian flag looks like something good. I hate seeing this flag with the US 50 stars over a Russian flag. It's very frustrating to watch, especially if you're an old school conservative like me who supports Ukraine. Thank you, my friends, for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.